1960s. When did you first hear about Marion Stoddard and her work? And do you recall meeting her?
That lady from Groton? Actually, this whole process started right after the Clean Water Acts in '65, and the paper companies were put under orders to come up with a plan to stop the discharge into the river at an acceptable level. D, right? Yeah. You didn't like D. In any event, so the former Mayor Burke and the Weyerhaeuser Company and Fitchburg Paper Company got together, and the paper companies agreed to fund the first report on what it's going to take to clean up the Nashua River in Fitchburg. And so that money had to pass through the city government, so it went to the city council to accept the $15,000 grant at that point. It ended up being around $300,000, but $15,000. And I first met Marion because, in typical fashion, she brought her bottles of dirty water to the city council and told us that this is what our river looks like, and it was important that we pass this petition to accept this money so that we get this process underway to start the cleanup of the river in Fitchburg.
All right, I'm going to ask a follow-up question to Bill. So after you were on the city council, you were elected mayor in 1968, a little bit before Mayor DiNatale. And you had, of course, many pressing topics on your plate, but did you or your constituents initially think the river was one of the pressing topics that you should address?
Actually, as Ellen and Marion pointed out, the river was so despicable that we didn't pay much. If you were from the city, you didn't think much of it. It ran through the city and it did its job cleaning the stuff away from the city, but there was nobody that had any love for the Nashua River. In fact, we were warned as kids, don't go near the river. So no, there was not any real great outpouring of public support or pressure to do anything. Remember, the environmental movement was just beginning. There was not a constituency out there at that particular point in time. Because I knew you were going to ask me this question, I went back and looked at the campaign literature, and I said 20 good reasons why to elect me mayor, and the Nashua River cleanup was number 9.
Well, it made the list. So, Marion, you were talking with business leaders in Fitchburg then. How much will did you think there was going to be initially to fund new wastewater treatment plants, restore the river?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Elizabeth. It depended upon which Fitchburg leader I spoke with. Don Crocker, who was then in charge of the Weyerhaeuser Paper Company in Fitchburg, and then the largest business in the city, Don said, I'm tired of wearing a black hat. He said, I want to wear a white hat. And so he really was supportive of cleaning up the river. On the other hand, when I tried to make an appointment to see George Wallace, when I tried to make an appointment to see George Wallace, who had the Fitchburg Paper Company, and Mr. Wallace said to me on the telephone after a long conversation, he said, well, Mr. Stoddard, he said, I'm going to put you on the back burner and turn the heat down real low. So I never did have the opportunity to meet with Mr. Wallace.
Okay, we're going to go back to Bill again. Ellen has quite a story to tell, but we're going to go to Bill and Marion again before Ellen. So Bill, as mayor, I understand that you did feel it was important to restore the Nashua River. What at that time was your driving interest, your highest interest in getting the new wastewater treatment plants built?
So shortly after I took office, this 2.5-inch thick document arrived, which was called the Camp Gerson McKee Report. And this was the blueprint on what we had to do. The reality, I know people would like to have me tell it differently, but the reality was This was an economic issue. Back in the 60s, we were going through that period where local industries were divesting and conglomerates were coming in. Pittsburgh Paper Company had been sold out to Litton Industries, and the Weyerhaeuser Company acquired the Crocker Papers group and so forth. But fortunately, at that time, we still had local management. So the corporate folks from the West Coast and so forth had not yet moved into the area, and we saw an opportunity to lock in the companies through the construction of these wastewater treatment plants for a couple of reasons. One, if they were locked in, the chances are we would be able to keep them longer. And two, that if they did leave, at least we had facilities that could be used because they had wastewater treatment plants. So that basically was economically driven, and we worked very quickly because we were able to get the various mechanisms, including creating the Monash as a Regional Planning Commission and so forth. We were able to get almost, I think it was 80% money from the feds and the state. It was 90% money from the feds and the state in order to make this happen. So it was an economic opportunity to save the paper company and paper industry in Massachusetts.